Ankara'da, Türkiye'de ağlamaktan memnuniyet duyuyorum.
It's a great pleasure for us to host Mr. Lavrov here in Turkey. We had our bilateral talks between the delegations and we dealt with all the agenda, hot agenda, and we had fruitful meetings and fruitful talks. And as you all know, our first topic on the agenda is Ukraine, and we have left 3.5 months of war in Ukraine, and we had humanitarian loss, and the damage, unfortunately, increases day by day. And since the first day of war, you know the principle of Turkey, and we wanted to end this war through negotiations, and we still keep our efforts to continue the negotiations, and we had meaningful improvements in this regard. But after that, we had some developments, and the negotiations became in the second step. But if it didn't happen, then maybe we would succeed, and we would succeed in terms of stopping and ending this war through negotiations, because it will be fruitful, it will be for the benefit of the region and the country and the world. And last week we were away from negotiations, but thanks to the explanations of Zelensky and our talks and our efforts, we see that there might be a basis for the negotiations again. And if both parties agree upon this, then we will do what we could do as Turkey. And I would like to once again say, and I said it to Sergei Lavrov today, once again, and of course in Black Sea, there are some problems in terms of transfer of the goods, and the first topic is the products and the hindrance of importing and exporting the products, actually. The grain of Ukraine, the exportation of grain of Ukraine. How can we do this? Because United Nations has a plan for the export of this grain of Ukraine, both United Nations, Russia Federation, Ukraine and Turkey. There might be a mechanism among these parties, and there might be a cooperation, and we are talking about such a plan of United Nations, and we think it is reasonable as Turkey, and it is implementable as a plan. So this plan should be accepted by Ukraine, Russian Federation, and that's why we are going to host a meeting in Istanbul upon the request of United Nations, and sunflower seed and sunflower seed oil from Ukraine could be transported, and we can take these obstacles out. Of course, this is a legitimate demand, request. Well, they say that maybe Russian Federation is away from the sanctions to the cereals or to the fertilizers and of the Russian Federation. Well, we don't think this is a legitimate explanation or a full explanation, because there are the transactions, banking transactions related to the transport of these grains, and the necessary steps should be taken in this way. If the product from Ukraine, the grains from Ukraine is needed from all around the world, then we should open this way, open the path, and the mechanism for to facilitate this should be established. And the ships, the freighters and the cargo ships should continue their operations, and we need to make the necessary arrangements in this regard, and the technical operation of this mechanism should be worked and should be worked upon.
Biraz önce bahsettiğimiz ürünlerin ihracatının önündeki engellerin
Well, of course, there are some obstacles related to these grains, but of course, we have talked about other issues in the region. In Libya, in Syria, even though we have different opinions, we are working together with this country, with Lavrov. And, you know, in the 8th meeting of the constitutional meeting, the meeting was a failure. That is why we think that the regime is not close to the constitutional result, and you know YPG is still a threat for us in Syria. Both in United States and in Russia, we had a consensus in 2019, and we have talked about this as well. You know, the territorial integrity of Syria should be protected, and we once again emphasized it. And you know, they are trying to divide the country. The terrorist organizations are still trying to divide the country, and we shouldn't let them do this. Again, we have talked and we have touched upon the issues in Libya, and the stability should be established in Libya, and all the parties should contribute to this sustainability. We don't want any competition among the countries. We always we always stand for the legitimacy, and that is why there should be a transparent election process for Libya. In Caucasus, 3+3 format is important. Azerbaijan, Armenian, normalization of Armenia and Azerbaijan and Turkey. This is very important as well, because Russian Federation support in these issues are of great importance, especially in Azerbaijan. In Armenia, a comprehensive peace agreement should be signed, and in Afghanistan, in Central Asia, how can we even facilitate and improve our cooperation? We have all touched upon these issues in these negotiations. In our bilateral relations, there are some obstacles in trade, in terms of logistics. We also touched upon these issues, and although we have some obstacles and hindrances, our trade is still developing, and I'm talking about Akkuyu nuclear central, and there are some issues, nuclear plant, and there are some issues and there are some steps that should be taken, and still these negotiations are going on between the delegations, and with these bilateral visits we will be touching upon bilateral issues and all the international issues. Our will is to have a permanent peace in Ukraine, and we are standing for any kind of steps to be taken in this regard. Once again, I would like to thank Lavrov for this important visit, and we will be answering all of your questions together. Sergei, once again, welcome. The microphone is yours now.
Дамы и господа, мы хотели бы прежде всего еще раз поблагодарить наших турецких друзей, хозяев за гостеприимство, за очень полезную встречу. Это уже третья встреча.
Well, this was a very fruitful talk, and this is the third talk. Before that, we had a meeting in Antalya and in Moscow before. Now, again, we are continuing our negotiations in Ankara. Of course, our relations between the countries is going through a major partnership through the pragmatism, and our relations are based on mutual trust. And of course, we see a locomotive in terms of improving our relations, and the dialogue between our leaders, state leaders, is very concrete. And they have phone calls for 9 times, and they are following up the bilateral bilateral agenda and international agenda, and between the governments of both countries and between the other agencies of our countries. We still have negotiations and we exchanged our ideas, and this year we have high-level cooperation mechanism, and we will have a 9th meeting of this mechanism. We have touched upon the international trade and the bilateral trade, and we will say that we have 14 billion trade volume right now, and we have discussed about all these issues like doing our trade with our national currency, and we will have Russian Mir payment card, and we would like to make it widespread, and then we will have more tourists coming to Turkey from Russia. And you know, in 2019 we had 7 million tourists coming to Turkey, and last year we had 4 million tourists. And traditionally we have some projects in terms of nuclear plants and nuclear cooperation, and we will continue our Akkuyu project, and all of these steps are continuing in a planned manner. Of course, our focus is Ukraine again, and we have some problems, and I have also conveyed the problems and the issues related to Ukraine, because, you know, in our border we had some problems, some threats coming from Ukraine in terms of security, and we had some security concerns, and we have talked about our military action, and we actually don't want to damage any civilians in this military operation. And Donbas and other regions, we are also protecting and our citizens, our Russian citizens in Donbas region. And of course, in terms of the transportation of grain from Ukraine, this is also important. The Ukrainian grain production is only 1% in the international market. That is why it is not a food crisis resulted from Ukraine solely, but the Western countries are showing it in this way. Of course, people are trying to hear what they would like to hear, but of course the efforts of our Turkish citizens and our Turkish friends are highly appreciated, because they want the freighters and the cargo ships to move from Ukrainian ports. Because, you know, in Ukrainian ports, it's like the ships are like a hostage, and our forces, in Ukraine, we have the humanitarian corridors in the Ukrainian waters, and I'm talking about the humanitarian corridor from the Black Sea to the Straits. And if the ships would like to follow this route, they can carry any kind of cargoes and any kind of goods, and then they can move in this regard. And our naval forces are there in this regard. And Mr. Zelensky said that we will be able to solve this problem if you give the weapons for that region. So we understand their opinions. If they would like to have a mine-free activities, if they are ready to start their mine-free operations, then we are ready as well for mine-free operations. And we are also in close contact with the Turkish soldiers. Well, this is a minor problem from our side. We don't have any problems, we don't have any blocks, any hindrances, any obstacles. So, in terms of cargo ships and in terms of the movements of these ships, we are not trying to have any problems. We are not trying to establish or make any kind of problems. Well, in these negotiations, we have also talked about Syria, and in the next meeting, we are going to prepare our next meeting in Nur Sultan in July this year. And again, for the Constitutional Commission meeting, yes, 1 week ago we had this meeting in Geneva. Related to the results, we have also exchanged our opinions. In the South Caucasus, how can we work together? We also agreed upon a system, 3+3 format is going to be established. And in Moscow we had the first meeting, and we didn't have our Georgian counterparts, but our gates are open for the Georgian counterparts. And the second meeting will be held soon, and we are going to announce it in the near future. And again, we have talked about the Middle East, and we have discussed about the Middle East problems. Again, we would like to have international efforts in this area. Both countries, the Palestine, the Israel and Palestine should have direct negotiations, and we are trying to establish a basis for this. But there are some forces, and they are trying to put some artificial obstacles, and they would like to preserve the current status quo in the region. But this is not positive. This is not favorable for the region. And for Libya, we have also touched upon the issue of Libya. Well, Mr. Mevlüt said that we have some separation of ideas. Yes, but we are as partners, as friends, and we can negotiate even though we have some different opinions. Our attitudes are respectful towards each other, and in terms of bilateral relations, we are taking our bilateral relations further for the benefit of both people of the countries. And for the security and safety of Black Sea, both countries have some obligations and responsibilities. We have a Montreux Agreement here, and we also appreciate the efforts of Turkey, and we have the Organization of Black Sea Cooperation, and we had the 30th anniversary of this Black Sea Cooperation Organization, and we would like to have the constructive actions and operations of these organizations as well. I would like to once again thank you for this fruitful negotiation.
Two from each side. The first question is for... Yes, please. From Bengü Türk TV, Ecem Hanım.
Ecem Taplar, Bengü Türk Televizyonu. Sizler de değindiniz.
As you just touched upon, we are talking about the solutions related to the Syrian corridor. So, can you talk about the phase and what kind of cooperation do you have with Turkey for these four countries meeting, for the leaders meeting, Putin, Zelensky, and Erdogan, whether they could be together? They could be together. So, do you have any agenda for this? This question is for both ministers.
Я уже объяснил, что в отношении вывоза украинского зерна
As I explained beforehand, for the cereals of Ukraine and for the transport of these cereals from Ukraine, actually, we have taken the necessary steps as Russia, and we are opening the cereals corridors, grain corridors every day, and we are protecting and we are ensuring the safety and security of the ships coming out of Ukraine. And please look at the explanations of Zelensky in terms of mine of this region, ensuring mine-free areas. Please, in terms of these issues, pay attention to the explanations of Zelensky. We are determined to apply our decisions, and in Istanbul we are going to have the initiative of United Nations. But I think this is a symbolic step of the United Nations to have a meeting in Istanbul. It is. It might be only for show, because Ukraine should clear off the mines from the territory so that the freighters and the cargo ships would move freely in the Ukrainian ports. So, for the possible meeting, Zelensky is going to have a meeting just for a meeting, because his attitudes change all the time, and he says that Russia, before February 24, he says that I can only talk or I can only negotiate if the military forces are withdrawn from Ukraine. So he changes his ideas and his opinions all the time, and we are witnessing the change of attitude of Zelensky. Well, I would say that now the Ukrainian part, it is the turn, or it's the chance of the Ukrainian part now. So they gave some promises in some issues, and they said that they would take necessary steps. And in the midst of April, we have shared our draft, our written draft, and they actually didn't reply to our draft. Of course, they know the targets and the objectives of our military action, and we will achieve our objection. Well, the crisis, the food crisis in the world is a real crisis. Well, please do not look this crisis only for the Ukrainian grain problem. We should also add Russian grains and Russian fertilizers. And Sergei went to South America, like Brazil, before, and they also had some concerns in terms of food. Well, we will say that the Russian and Ukrainian cereals and grains corresponds to one out of third of the world grains. That is why the transit corridor and a safe area, these are very important. And I'm talking about the plan of the United Nations. And you said that the ships, we should, okay, you say that you should be assured that these ships do not carry any arms or any weapons inside. So, of course, there should be a mechanism to oversee and to supervise these products and these cargo ships. You will be involved in this mechanism, and then we will be talking about the obstacles in front of the exportation or the importation from these countries, and we will also
Yani bu konuda yapıcı
no
bir
more.
iş
We will
birliğine
also
gitmekte
have no
fayda var.
more
Müzakerelerle ilgili,
problems
son
or
zamanlarda
hesitations
Zelenski'nin tekrar
related to
müzakerelere
security.
dönmek istiyoruz demesi,
Zelensky
Sayın
said that
Cumhurbaşkanımıza da
we
Sayın
would
Putin'le
like
bir
to
araya
go
gelme
back to the
arzusunda olduğunu
negotiations,
söylemesi, bunu
and
kamuoyuna
our
açıkladığı
president
için
said
söylüyorum.
that he would like to come together with Putin,
müzakereye dönme
as he also
konusunda
shared it with
birkaç
the
hafta öncesine göre daha
public before.
olumlu bir
So I think that
atmosferin olduğunu
the
görüyoruz
atmosphere
sahadaki
to go back to the
gelişmeler
negotiations
çerçevesinde.
is more
Eğer,
positive
her
for the
iki taraf
time
da
being.
tabii
And
tekrar bir
for
araya
both
gelmek
parties,
isterse,
if they would
biz
like to come
kolaylaştırıcı
together,
ülke olarak
we will be
gerekli
the
desteği
facilitator
avantajı da
country,
sizlere
and
bir
we
araya
will
getirdiysek,
extend
İstanbul'da
the
müzakere
necessary
heyetlerimizi
support,
bir araya getirdiysek
and
tekrar
we will once again do our best to start the negotiations. And our leader said before that Turkey will be happy to host the leaders meeting, as we have shared before. We would like to have an objective and balanced attitude, and we will continue this attitude. And I would like to have I would like to say that we will have a ceasefire, and I believe that a ceasefire solution throughout the negotiations would be great. Well, the second question is from Russia.
Меня зовут Илья Петренко, телеканал RT. Вопрос будет к
My name is Iliya Petrenko, and my question is also for both ministers. Well, we see that the rhetoric of Kyiv is irritating some of the partners. Well, this is our impression, and some of the partners react to the Kiev's attitude. And because they want from the countries some plans which would be hard to actualize. So what they do is not a diplomacy. And you are, when you talked, when you meet your partners, what would you say? Do you have any kind of disappointment or frustration? I have actually commented on this before. Sometimes I also do not talk or do not speak in the diplomatic manner, but sometimes it is important to emphasize what you say. Sometimes they have some harsh words towards their leaders, but I think that the manner of speech would be in a gentleman manner. Well, I said that we have an objective attitude and neutral attitude. Actually, we do not act to satisfy Russia or to satisfy Ukraine. For example, we didn't attend, we didn't participate in sanctions towards Russia, so this didn't please Ukraine. And some actions that we take did not please Russia, but our attitude is neutral, our attitude is objective. So if something is right, we say it is right, and if something is wrong, we say wrong, and we also criticize the war that Russia started. So if we see anything that is wrong, we say it. Of course, it is really important to protect and not to lose the common sense. And we should have reasonable approach, and we should take reasonable steps other than just, carrying out sentimental steps. Well, the second question would be from Betül Usta from Sabah newspaper. You said that the 8th round constitutional meeting was held, and next week there will be some meeting in Nur Sultan.
kuzeyinden ülkemize yönelik terör
And we had some systematic increase from Syria, from a terrorist organization. And what would be your assessments in these issues? And you know, there was this consensus after the Operation Peace Spring. Have you also talked about this negotiation agreement? Well, I also emphasized it during my speech. In the eighth round of the meeting, constitutional meeting, we didn't have any positive result or any result. Our ambassador Sedat Önal was also in this meeting, and he also met his counterparts in this meeting. But still, we would like this dialogue, this process to continue. And in Astana platform, we will also attend this meeting in Astana, and we are also contributing to the efforts of United Nations. But there is a regime who do not like, or who do not, this regime actually, the defendants of this regime actually do not want this political solution. So, well, we need to increase our efforts in this area, and the only solution is actually political solution. The regime should have a consensus for the future, and this process will be supported by the Turkish Republic, and we will always defend the territorial integrity of Syria. And for the terrorist organizations, we should clear off these terrorist organizations, PKK, YPG, or the other terrorist organizations should be cleared off the territory. But these terrorist organizations are supported from some countries in Europe, like the Finland, like the other countries, and there are some limitations towards Turkey. And we have also conveyed this in a written note. They have some restraints towards Turkey, as you just said. We have a common explanation with EU, and in Sochi we have also had a memorandum of understanding signed together with Sergei Lavrov, and we have read this together. We read this together with Sergei Lavrov, and we shared it with the public opinion. And as I just said, there are some guarantees of Russia and EU that this territory, this region would be cleared of terrorist organization. That is why it should be purged, and we actually cannot show any kind of tolerance in this area. Well, we will take our last question.
Я сказал, что вопрос мне тоже был адресован, поэтому я тоже воспользуюсь этой возможностью.
Well, I will be able to answer this question on this occasion. Maybe I can add a few more sentences. Our states and the leaders of our countries discussed Syrian issue, and in 2018 we had disarmament region in Idlib, and we said that we will purge the terrorist threat in this area. Unfortunately, but in these documents we share all the articles, and there are some sensitivities of our Turkish citizens related to this threat. United States is feeding and supporting some of the terrorist organizations illegitimately, and in Russia these foreign actors still continuing their support, and you know that we are also having problems in terms of support given to these organizations by the external factors. Yes, the constitutional works related to Syria is not continuing in a fast manner. Still, they are trying to be more constructive, and we need to urge them, we need to encourage them. But our Western partners or the partners from United States, they said that the Assad regime, while they are ruling the country, we will not take out, we will not take or remove the restraints that we are applying for now. So the international community is not facilitating to solve the problems in the area. They do not work on this issue. And 1 year ago, there is a resolution adopted by UN, and they say that the social infrastructure should be established in that region, but no steps are taken in this area. So the international community should be more active in this area. And United Nations should fulfill the responsibility and support these infrastructure works. In Syria, United States of America is actually do not support this area in terms of humanitarian aid. We cannot even we cannot even help Syria in terms of humanitarian assistance. Well, my question would be to the Minister of Russian Federation. In the ports of Ukraine, you say that how can we, when the Ukrainian counterparts will clear the mines. So they think that if they clear the mines, then Russia will attack Ukrainian Black Sea ports. Then, if there is any possibility that we could guarantee Ukraine that we are not going to attack if they clear the mines, is it possible? If Ukraine clear the mines from there, we will not have any kind of military operation. The ships will be able to move freely. We will take these steps.
This is the end of our press conference. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ну, конечно, мы же не на Украине, мы же в Турции, в свободной стране.
Mikrofonu verelim. Sergei bir soru daha almayı kabul etti.
Суспільне телебачення України, общественное телевидение Украины. Меня зовут Муслим Умеров. У меня такой вопрос. Что из украденного в Украине, помимо зерна, Россия...
I am representing Ukrainian television.
Еще раз.
Что из украденного в Украине, помимо зерна, России уже удалось продать?
For the cereals in the markets, well, Russia stole the goods from Ukraine. Well, you know our objectives are open, and we do not would like to be neo-Nazi pressure, and we would like to save our Ukrainian citizens in that region. Well, actually, this is not any kind of hindrances. Only Zelensky should move and should act that and thank you.